And welcome. Thank you very much for joining the webinar. My name's Neil. I'm the senior trainer at Creative Hut, and I've been working in education for nearly 10 years now. So I've had the privilege of working with lots of teachers and pupils and seeing the impacts that hands-on learning has in the classroom. And so we want to give you some demonstrations, some ideas on how you can use some hands-on resources to do whatever teaching and learning that you're currently doing at home at the moment. So hopefully this will help as part of that. To give you a little bit of information on Creative Hut, who we are, what we usually do. We are a STEAM education resource and training provider. So we are usually working with lots of schools, teachers, educators as a whole, and giving them advice on what the best hands-on resources or solutions are for them to use in their classroom for different areas of the curriculum. So we're usually doing a lot of consultancy. We do supply the physical resources themselves, and we provide ongoing support and training on those resources to help schools effectively use it in their classroom in the different areas of the curriculum. So that's what we're usually doing. Of course, with the situation that we're in at the moment, it's a little bit harder to get hands-on resources in the school. So we're trying to give you some ideas and introductions to resources you can still use at home yourselves with your pupils or children or whoever you're working with. So in this webinar, we're actually going to be giving you a demo on one of our resource partners, which is Sphero Education. Okay, so this is all going to be based mainly on their Sphero robots. Okay, so these are exactly as they sound, robotic balls or robotic spheres. They do lots of other types of resources as well, but for this we are going to focus on their robotic spheres. Okay, so just to give you a little bit of background on what Sphero is all about, it's absolutely all about fun, hands-on learning, which is going to help us keep our children and pupils engaged and inspired throughout all of their learning. It definitely allows for easy learner progression from the basics at younger ages all the way through into really complex challenges up into Key Stage 5 age and really beyond. There's no real limits to what age you can be using Sphero education at. And it's definitely focused on computing, science, maths, but a lot more as well. There's actually ways you can use this within art, music, PE. There's lots and lots and lots of different opportunities, as you will be able to see for yourself shortly and after the webinar as well. I think it's also really important to point out that this is great for really simple classroom management. It's not a lot of components that we're working with or anything like that. And as you'll see for yourself, the software and the activities are really easy to use. So it is really quick and easy to get up and running with this in the classroom, whether that be in a school or at home. Okay, so I am going to be showing you all of this live in a moment. Before I do, I just want to explain a couple of the main things with Sphero that you've got to work with. And the first point of that is how you actually code or control the Sphero robots. And there's three main ways in which you can do this. So that is drawing code, using block-based programming, and text-based programming, as you can see here. So they're the three main ways, and this is what really lends into that easy learning progression. You can start off with drawing codes at the early ages and progress all the way up through blocks and into text-based codes as they get older and more experienced using the resource and carrying out more complex challenges. And again, I'll show you this in more detail in a second. And it's also really important to point out that what goes hand in hand with all of this is the Sphero EDU platform, which is brilliant for giving you basically everything that you need to use this in the classroom or at home with the pupils. It contains all of the activities, tutorials, programming guides that you're going to need to build up your skills and knowledge from basic beginner level all the way up to advanced level. And that's exactly what we're going to take a look at to begin with. So I'm going to switch my view now to the Sphero EDU. So you can see the, oh, sorry, I can show you this on web page like so, or you can actually also install the app onto a laptop or tablet, depending on what you're working with. So I'm using the app on a laptop, so I'm just going to make this a little bit bigger. This will load up now. And once it does, you'll be able to see all of the content you've got to work with. So I'm just going to switch this to the UK view. So you can see here, straight away, it gives you examples of activities that you can filter down into in terms of the themes of activities and age ranges here. I'm actually going to switch to the UK key stages so it is suitable for ourselves in the UK. And to give you a quick overview of all the things you've got to work with in here, of course, you've got your menu bar at the top here. So home will take you always back to this main home section. Activities is where you can find all of the activities which you can access and work through. And there's actually, it is really comprehensive in terms of the amount of content that you have to work with. There's some that are put together by Sphero themselves, and others are put together by the general Sphero user community. Okay, so you can actually filter through those as well. Once you get more into this, if you ever want to share your own activities, what you've been able to create and do, you can do that as well. And of course, you can access or go back to all of the activities that you're creating or working through in these sections here as well. You've then got the ability to create straight away programs, which I'll come back to in a second. You can actually also use this with a full class. So for those of you that are still thinking about using this with a full class of 30 pupils, whatever it might be, you can actually manage a full class within the software by assigning projects and activities to the full class through the software as well. It's also useful to point out this section here, drive. So I mentioned the three main ways in which you can code, which are draw, blocks, and text. You can actually do simple drive control, which basically means a simple joystick control, which maybe isn't the most educational form of control, but it can be useful for having that initial play straight out of the box and for getting used to how the Sphero behaves and moves about. So it is useful to be aware of that. But what I'm going to go straight to now is how you create a program. So remember, everything that I am guiding you through now in terms of how to code, you've got all of these different activities and tutorials which will take you through it step by step. So you can see all the different projects you've got to work with. There's lots and lots and lots, but I'm not going to go into those because all of these you can explore quite easily for yourself after the webinar. But I do want to show you some of the main things in terms of how you then start to control Sphero, which you would be guided through step by step in those activities. So I'm going to go back to this programming section here, and I can go to create. Okay, I will show you this working live with an actual robot in a moment, but at this point I can simply create a program. So let's say bots. Okay, and you can see I've got the different options here: draw, blocks, text. So let's take a quick look at that draw section. So this is where you can start to introduce codes to pupils at a really early learning level. Okay, and I can also select the specific type of Sphero robot I'm working with. As you can see all the different options here. I'm going to be working with bolts, and I will be showing you this on video in a moment. And all I need to now do is create. Okay, so it's going to load up the canvas for me, and you can see here I've basically got this grid type canvas, and when it says draw, that is literally what I'm going to do. I can use my mouse pointer here to start to draw out some code or a pattern that I want the Sphero robot to follow. As simple as that. So you can see I just created this general pattern. I could then send this straight to my robot and ask it to carry out that action. Okay, and these, so you know, the length of these squares is roughly about 40 centimeters. So that's how I would know how far it would be traveling. So this is great for really introducing the basic concepts of coding. What we are doing here is creating essentially a sequence, okay, or a set of instructions for the robot to act out and follow. It's just in a draw format, okay? So a really great way to introduce those basic levels of coding at those early ages. I just want to quickly show you as well, while I've just done that pattern there, we could also start to introduce certain things like colors and shapes for early learning as well. So you can see I've got this color icon at the bottom. I can actually change the color of those lines. So it might be that I go for a green line first of all, then a blue line, like so, and then a red line across the bottom here to complete a triangle. Now, you're not going to be able to see this in action just now, but basically what that would then do is get the Sphero robot to perform a triangle route, and it would be displaying these colors on the matrix. Okay, now I'll be showing you exactly what that means in a moment. But it's a great way for introducing not just coding at a really early age, but we can build this into learning about shapes and colors and all that kind of thing as well. So hopefully that makes sense on how we can use that type of functionality. I think it is fairly self-explanatory, so I won't show you that in action on the video just now. We'll go straight into the next level of programming, which is using blocks. So I'm going to go back and create a new program now. So I'll go back into that create. Let's do now bolt 2. This time I've got blocks selected, and I'm going to go back to selecting my Sphero bolt, which I'll be demonstrating with in a moment. And I can now create a new programming canvas. Okay, so now you can see we've got a different view, and this is our block-based coding. So some of you might be familiar with other block-based coding languages. It does work in a similar way, but it's also specific to the Sphero bolt resources. So you can see at the bottom here, I've got all these different palettes of programming blocks which I can use to create a sequence of codes to get the robot to do what I want it to do. Some of the more basic ones that we would be using from the very start are these first 4 here. So I've got movement for controlling the movement of the robot itself, exactly as it sounds. Lights, so I can control the LED lights on the robot itself. Again, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about that in a second. We can also use sounds, so that means sounds from the laptop or the tablet that we're working with as part of the activities and the programs that we're creating. And then we've got the controls, which is essentially the flow of the program. So getting it to start and stop, asking it to wait for a certain amount of time before it does something else, repeating things, all these different types of controls. Okay, and then you can see we've got lots more complex levels of coding. I won't go into those for the purposes of this demo, but there's lots more levels of complexity you can get into with the coding. And again, there are tutorials and guides which will show you exactly how to use all these different types of things as well. But what I just want to show you is how I would start to build up a code. Okay, so I can just start to bring in blocks like so, clicking, dragging and dropping into place. What I also want to stress, by the way, is while I'm showing you this on a desktop software, this works in exactly the same way in tablet form or app form as well. So you can be using this exact same software on an iPad, Android tablet, whatever it might be. So what I've got here, first of all, is a role block. So this enables me to direct the heading of the robot. So you can see I can change the heading within a full 360-degree circle. And again, this will make more sense when you see it in action on the video as well. But I can point it in any which direction I want just by moving this. So it could be that I want it to go in a 90-degree heading at a certain speed, so slow to fast up to a level of 250. So I could just be a moderate 100, not always best to crank it up to full speed. And this is how many seconds it's going to roll for. So it might be for 2 seconds or something like that. Okay, I can then maybe bring in something like a delay. So before it does something else, I want it to delay or wait for maybe 1 second to let it stabilize before it goes on to something else. I can then bring in things like sounds, so I can get it to play random sounds, or I can choose from lots of different sound effects from the list here. And then I can maybe bring in some lights. So again, I can bring in full color LED lights, or maybe even an animated matrix as part of my program. I'm just going to maybe bring in a full main LED and so on. And then I can maybe go back to bringing in another role block to get it to go and move a different direction at a different speed for so many seconds. Okay, so hopefully this is making sense on how we can build up a sequence of codes. Okay, so now I'll come back to this again in a second, but at this point I am going to change to the video view so you can see the robot itself and we can see exactly what this relates to. So I'm going to make my video screen larger, so hopefully you can see me. Hello. And I'm going to change the view on this so you can start to see the robot itself. So this here is Bolt. So this is the robotic ball that I've been talking about. Now, to talk through this in a little bit of detail, exactly what you're working with, it is a incredibly durable robot. Okay, so this is a hard case shell which is completely sealed. You never open this, so it is designed for a lot of wear and tear at home or in the classroom. This can go flying off tables, bashing into walls, it will be absolutely fine. We've even been told it's possible to drop this from a 3-story window height, and it will be absolutely fine. I'll be honest, we've not actually tested it ourselves yet, but I'm sure we will do it at some point. But basically, it is completely durable to be used in all sorts of different settings and withstand wear and tear and bashing into lots of different things. You've got all sorts of different sensors within this. So you've got things like accelerometers, gyroscopes, which you can use within the coding and control to get the robot to do different things. You've of course got the matrix. So this is what I was talking about with the changing the color of the LED, or a matrix animation. You can see all those different pixels basically which you can control, which are really useful for all sorts of different activities. In terms of charging, it is inductive charging. You simply need to put it into the cradle, which plugs into a socket via USB, and as simple as that to get it to charge up. Okay, so that is the robot itself. Now what I want to show you, of course, is the robot in action. So what I've actually got here is a simple maze. Okay, so I want to try and get my Sphero robot to navigate around this maze. Now, I've actually created this maze via 3D printing, but you can do that in all sorts of different ways. You can do it simply by mapping out a maze with tape, or bits of cardboard or books or whatever you've got access to. The maze itself could be created by anything. I just happen to have a 3D printed maze, which I can get the robot to navigate its way around. Okay, so I will be placing the robot into the maze and then showing you the codes to navigate its way around this. And what I've actually got here is basically a space theme maze. I hope you can see we've got bits of stars around this. And what my challenge for this is going to be is that while I want to get the robot to get itself around the different sections of the maze, I've also got these star stickers. So the challenge with this is that every time the robot passes over or nearby a sticker, it needs to do something different. So the challenge with that could be getting to spin on itself, make a sound, use that LED matrix, whatever you want it to be. And I'll show you what I've come up with in a moment. But before I show it in action, of course, I want to show you the code for this. So I'm going to switch back to the app itself. And I do actually have a pre-put together code for this. I'm going to go back to my programs, and I've got one that I've put together here called Sphero Bolt Space Maze, which is a solution to this challenge. But I just want to show you what I've got into. So here you can see those similar blocks that I was showing you how to put together in a sequence. And I basically use a combination of delay blocks, roll blocks, sound blocks, animation blocks to get the robot to go where I want to do. So you can hopefully see within all these roll blocks, I've got slightly different degree headings and speed and seconds to get it to go to the correct places. So that's the code that I put together to control my robot. Okay, so I'm now going to switch back to the video and show you this in action. So let's go back to looking at the robots and the maze. Now I'm going to put it into main. Now the important thing to talk about on this is, well, I was showing you the headings, the different headings which you can control Sphero to be going. We need to make sure our Sphero is in the right place to understand where that heading is. So again, if you imagine we're around the Sphero, we can control a full 360 degrees of headings, but we need to know, the Sphero robot needs to know exactly which way it's heading to go the correct way. So within the program function, what I haven't shown you on the screen, but you'll be able to see this for yourselves, and it does guide you through it, there is what's called an aim function. So I've got this function running off the screen now, but I'm moving this. So hopefully you can see now the ball is rotating, and can you see this blue LED light? That's what we use to make sure our Sphero is aimed the right way. Basically, I want that that blue LED pointing towards me, which it is now. So I now know this blue LED is pointing towards me. That now means that pointing in front of me, that is 0 degrees. This is 90 degrees. Towards me, 180 degrees. And to the left, 270 degrees. And obviously everything in between. So that's how I now know that the robot is pointing in the right direction, and I can start my program. So let's now run that code that I just showed you on the screen. So let's press start, and it's going to begin that program, making its way around the maze. And hopefully you heard that space sound at the beginning, and another round of applause when it got to that final store. So that's my robot solving that maze challenge, okay? And you might have seen that I did have an animation being played on the matrix display as well. Okay, so it's as simple as that to start to carry out beginner activities like that with the Sphero bolt. So hopefully that's all making sense. Now, that is just one option on the Sphero robots kits that you can get. So I'm actually going to take Sphero bolts to one side and introduce you to another option. And that is going to be Sphero Mini, which is this little robot here, okay? So it's the same principles as the Sphero bolts that we're working with, but this is great for out-of-the-box experience, and in terms of what you can do with it. So it's still, as I say, the same principles as the bolt in terms of how you control it. It's still obviously just a Sphero, a sphere type robotic ball, obviously a lot smaller than the bolts we were working with. And in terms of what you've got to work with in the pack, as I said, great out of the box play straight away experience, because you've got the components like these. Okay, so rather than do something like a 3D printed maze like I'm showing you using tape, you can actually use the components that come in the box like this to build up a maze like this that I've got on the screen here as well. You've got really cool little components like this. So this is a turbo skin cover for the Sphero Mini, which gives it even more grip or traction, which can be really useful for different activities. You've also got little components like this, so you can create little bowling pin activities or cone activities. So I'm sure you can imagine how you might be able to use those for certain things. And of course, you've got these great in the box activity booklets. Okay, so there's lots of different types of these. So even without having to go into those activities and guides built into software, you've got guides you can use straight away. So you can see here we've got examples of how you can set up bowling games and all sorts of different things. Okay, so they're really useful to make use of. The other thing to point out, one of the main differences between this is with this, you don't, of course, have the same amount of sensors that you've got to work with as the Sphero bolts. You don't have the LED matrix to be controlling. And with this, it's not a fully sealed robot. While it is still robust, basically, I could take this apart. I'm not going to now as I've still got it live and running, but you would take the shell apart to take the robot inside out, and that's where you access the charging ports. So it might be that if it does go running into a wall at high speed, it might just come apart. It will still be absolutely fine. It just mean having to put it back together. Okay, so that is the Sphero Mini. Now, in terms of the coding for this, exactly the same principles as what we were looking at with the Sphero bolts. You can still use draw, blocks, and text. It's just obviously with certain things like the control of the matrix and certain sensors, you won't be able to make use of all the blocks. We can still do quite a lot. So I just wanted to show you the comparison with this in terms of a similar activity. So of course got a maze built up here, which I'm able to do straight out of the box with the components that you get. I'm again going to aim my Sphero Mini to make sure it is pointing the right way. And it now is, and I've got a really similar code set up like I was demonstrating to you a second ago, which I'm going to press start on now, and Mini is going to start trying to solve that maze like so. Okay, as simple as that. And I could of course try and improve that code to get it to navigate it without hitting the walls at all, or different things like that. So again, hopefully that's making sense on how that works, the type of activities that you can carry out, and how Sphero Mini differs to the bolt. Okay, so that's just a quick introduction to the two main types of robots that you can work with and use at home. But hopefully, again, you can see how fun and hands-on these are straight away. And you can start to do really great activities before moving on to something more complex. And talking about more complex activities, I just really want to quickly show you as well, going back to the app, I did mention that you can also see this in, or use this in text-based programming, okay? So that is in the form of Java code. So you can see I've got these options at the top here. If I actually select the JavaScript code, I can see the text-based code that goes behind that, which is great for those students which are starting to want to progress from block-based programming to text-based coding. They can see exactly how that looks in that format and then actually start to code in that for themselves. But again, there is tutorials which will guide them exactly through that as well. Okay, so that is nearly everything that I wanted to talk you through. One of the last points, of course, is that we do want to give you just some brief information in terms of how what costs you might be looking at. And the great thing with Sphero is that there are a couple of really great affordable options. So just really quickly, in terms of the costs for this, that Sphero Bolt that we were looking at is priced at £124.99 excluding VAT. And then the Sphero Mini Activity Pack, which we were looking at, that is £66.66 excluding VAT. So if you have got any more questions on those, of course, please do get in touch with us. And I do want to make that clear, actually, that after this and you start to explore in a bit more detail, if you've got any questions whatsoever, please do get in touch with us. Our main email address is info@creative-hut.com. You can also visit our website for a lot more information on the Sphero resources and everything else that Creative Hut do and how we can help. So please do check out our website. We'll also be putting out lots more video demos and tutorials on products like this, and lots of activities you can do for free with general materials you've got at home as well. So look out for those on our website and our social media channels. But again, hope you found that useful and you have enjoyed it. Thank you very much for joining, and bye for now. Thank you again.